Oh, they're gonna paint your room.
Yeah, and they keep saying they're coming, but they don't come. 3 days.
Ben is a good Samaritan. Look, watch him. So washing up for him.
Julian Assange has spent nearly 4 years in Belmarsh Prison, London. He has been fighting extradition to the United States, where he faces up to 175 years in prison for espionage charges. Rare video footage from inside Belmarsh shows Julian Assange interacting with prisoners and also having his plates washed up by a prisoner, which shows that he's in general population and also popular and not in any threat. This goes to show how Julian can adapt to situations after previously spending 7 years in virtual solitary in the Ecuadorian embassy. In December of 2022, Julian Assange made a request to leave prison to go to the funeral of his friend Dame Vivienne Westwood. She recently passed away, and she was a great supporter of Julian. She even dressed as a canary and suspended herself in a birdcage outside the Old Bailey in July 2020 to protest his potential extradition. The death of his friend has made him issue a statement for the first time since being imprisoned in 2019. He said that she was a dame, she was a pillar of the anti-establishment, she was bold, creative, thoughtful, and also a good friend. She was the best of Britain, and she will be missed terribly by me and so many other people. Julian was the founder of Wikileaks, which was responsible for releasing thousands of government files that involved war crimes that had potentially occurred in Iraq and Afghanistan. One of the most infamous videos was the 2007 video of the army helicopter attack in Baghdad, where it showed helicopter pilots acting like it was a video game with total disregard for life. They killed journalists during that attack, and nobody that was shot was an insurgent.
He's got a weapon too. Hotel 26, Crazy Horse 18, have 5 to 6 individuals with AK-47s. He's got an RPG.
Hey, Roger. Keep shooting.
God damn it, Kyle.
Alright. I hit him by head.
Oh yeah, look at those dead bastards.
1-8, gauge, clear.
Come on.
Clear.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Hey, I need to get the brass to drop ramps. I got a wounded girl. We need to take the rest of mine.
2 children also suffered severe injuries, and this video went viral around the world, and it was called Collateral Murder. WikiLeaks was responsible for raising $150,000 for the people that had been victim to this atrocity. And the American government were furious that Julian had dared to release what they classed as secret files. Julian worked with Chelsea Manning, who used to be Bradley Manning. They shared nearly 1 million documents of US Army reports from the US-Iraq War in 2010. It was the largest military leak in US history. The majority of the Iraq War diaries dated from 2004 to 2009. And WikiLeaks released tens of thousands of unrecorded civilian casualties, the use of death squads, torture squads, during the occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan. They also exposed the US support for military coups and brutally repressive regimes, alongside the Guantanamo Bay files that were called the Gitmo files. Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning would later be arrested and jailed for 35 years, but this would be reduced by President Obama. The US government accused Assange of hacking passwords and helping Bradley to be able to get the documents. Assange was born in Queensland, Australia, and began hacking as a teenager. Assange pled guilty to 24 charges of hacking and related crimes in Australia, and he paid £2,000 in fines. And he went on to study programming, mathematics and physics at Central Queensland University in Melbourne. He also worked with the police in order to help prosecute people who were distributing child porn, so he used his hacking skills in order to be able to find people that were trying to be predators of children. Julian's childhood was anything but normal. His father had little influence in his life, and his mother got with another man called Brett, and that is where his surname is from, Assange. He went to 37 different schools as he moved around the country because his mother and stepfather worked in the theatre. That relationship then broke down, and she got with a much younger man who Assange said was a manipulative psychopath. Yet he knew from a very young age that he was very gifted with computers, and some people believed that he may have been autistic. This would open doors that he would never have imagined and take him down a path that nobody could have planned. When Bradley Manning was jailed in 2012, Julian Assange was also wanted by the US government. The Swedish police also issued an arrest warrant in relation to the 2 women accusing him of sexual assault. He always maintained his innocence in relation to them accusations, and the charges were eventually dropped, and his lawyers believed it was just an attempt to get him to go to Sweden so he could be sent to the US. In December of 2012, Assange gave himself up to British authorities. He was facing an extradition hearing and Assange was granted bail. He went on to take refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy and didn't leave for 7 years.
To have a streamlined system of extradition, and on the other hand, the need to maintain trust and confidence by safeguarding the rights of the individual and the recognition that the measures that are being introduced are very serious infringements on the right to individual liberty. So it may not be right simply to say you give it the broadest possible interpretation. It must be given the correct interpretation, having regard to the purpose.
Julian disguised himself as a motorcycle courier and walked up to the Ecuadorian small embassy that is behind Harrods in central London and handed himself in for asylum. He would then face years of legal wranglings in relation to the Stockholm accusations of sexual assault, until they eventually dropped them charges. During his stay in the embassy, Julian managed to father 2 sons with his wife and former lawyer Stella Morris. Gabriel and Max regularly visit him, but he's not been able to ever spend any time overnight with them. After 7 years inside the embassy, the relationship with the government began to deteriorate, and then eventually he was handed over to British authorities on the 11th of April 2019. He was jailed for 50 weeks for the breach of bail that he'd previously done in 2012 before he went into the embassy. Ever since then, he has been fighting extradition, and that has now been 4 years nearly. During his time in Belmarsh prison, he has suffered a mini stroke, and he's also been in and out of court battling the extradition. In January 2021, a British magistrate blocked Assange's extradition, and it was on medical grounds, and they said that he would have many health issues if he was sent to America, where their prisons are draconian. They also said that he was at risk of suicide. The US government would then reassure the British government and say that he would not be treated in any way that would be a breach of his human rights. This resulted in the appeal being overturned by the British government and the extradition being approved by the Home Secretary Priti Patel. In 2021, it was also revealed about Vault 7, which was the biggest CIA data leak that was ever revealed, and it was published by Wikileaks. The CIA were meant to be furious that they did this, and there was plans and plots apparently to try to poison Julian Assange while he was inside the Ecuadorian embassy previously. The CIA were alleged to have plotted to kidnap the Wikileaks founder and also attempts to potentially consider murdering him. Wikileaks had been on the radar of the US intelligence agencies for many years, and these plans of all-out war against the founder were never heard of. But this was extraordinarily sensitive data that had been released about the CIA. It revealed their methods for hacking, and it was known collectively as Vault 7. President Trump's newly installed CIA director Mike Pompeo was seeking revenge, they said, on Wikileaks and also Assange, who sought refuge in the embassy in 2012. They said that the government were embarrassed and they were out for blood. Edward Fitzgerald, representing Julian, said there was a lot of evidence and discussions about kidnapping Julian Assange.
What lengths was the organization willing to go through to get their hands on Julian Assange and shut down WikiLeaks?
Well, pretty far. As I mentioned, the kidnapping, abduction plans were taken pretty seriously and pushed by Pompeo. It was part of a sort of multi-pronged attack that the CIA director and top officials wanted to launch on WikiLeaks.
The CIA conducted an illegal conspiracy to assassinate the editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks. It was also revealed in a Spanish court in 2020 that an employee of UC Global was paid by the CIA to monitor Julian Assange's communications. There was also photo evidence of this surveillance that was underway. But nevertheless, even with all the tribulations that he's gone through, him and his long-term partner Stella Morris managed to get married this year inside HMP Belmarsh. The prison wouldn't allow Julian to go on camera due to, they said, a security risk, but I believe it would be more based around the promotion. His late friend Vivienne Westwood also designed the dress for Stella, and his children attended the venue that could only have 6 people there. And it just goes to show that no matter what he's going through, he's still trying to stay positive, and he's hopeful that he will not get extradited.
You're very brave, Stella.
Good cry, please.
We love you. You're simply the best. You're simply the best. Yes.
Thank you, guys. I don't know what to say. I'm very happy. I'm very sad.
I know you don't.
I love Julian with all my heart. And I wish he were here. I wish he were here.
Thank you, everyone.
The consequences for journalism if Julian Assange gets extradited are unimaginable. You will no longer be able to have sources, you will no longer be able to expose government corruption, you will no longer be able to expose war crimes due to government secret files. And if the British government allow this to go through, they are also complicit. So I really appreciate you joining me today, and I'm sorry for the delay on this story, but I really appreciate it if you shared it and at Scarcity Studios, and I'll be back again very shortly with some more news.
I have him to take his own life. That extradition is oppressive. Yet the High Court decided against Julian on this occasion on the basis of political assurances, non-assurances that the US has given to the UK government.
Every day, ordinary people teach us that democracy is free speech and dissent. For once, we the people stop speaking out and stop dissenting. Once we are distracted or pacified, once we turn away from each other, we are no longer free. For true democracy is the sum of our resistance. If you don't speak up, if you give up what is uniquely yours as a human being, if you surrender your consciousness, your independence, your sense of what is right and what is wrong, in other words, perhaps without knowing it, you become passive and controlled, unable to defend yourselves and those you love.